All right, friends, welcome in. I'm the Kodiak, and today I'm here to talk about free agents I do not want the Denver Broncos to sign. So I'm going to talk about 5 dudes who the Broncos should not sign. Before I get into it, I just want to say a couple things. First of all, leave a like if you enjoy, subscribe if you're not already. You can always wait until the end. Hopefully, I'll have earned it. My common question today is, who is your number one priority free agent signing? So who do you want the Broncos to sign? Follow me on Twitter if you like what I have saying here at Kodiak Broncos. Let's dive right into it. So there are a bunch of dudes who are well over the old man cliff in the NFL. And I've seen some back and forth discourse about this in Broncos country. But somebody who talks about the Broncos quite a bit every single day and has a podcast that is a relatively big podcast recommended that we go after Nick Chubb. And to that, I say that this dude just needs to be off your free agency board in the year of 2025. And one of the justifications the guy made about signing a guy like Nick Chubb is that the Broncos strength and conditioning staff has had a marvelous past 2 years where they've kept guys healthy at one of the best clips in the NFL. But the counterpoint to that is, have we not already seen that with Javonte Williams? Like, what can happen after a running back comes back from literally snapping his knee in half or snapping his ankle in half? Like, just because the Broncos have Bo Lowry and just because the Broncos have had a great run of health within the past 2 years, knock on wood, does not mean that we can undo what happened to Nick Chubb week 2 in 2023 against the Steelers. And honestly, that injury has caught up to him. Like, he just did not look good at all this year. Granted, I will say it's not all his fault because the running scheme in Cleveland was not the 2020, 2021, 2022 running scheme that we've been used to with Kevin Stefanski. But either way, when we played against the Cleveland Browns, I thought Jerome Ford looked much more dangerous and offered much more than Nick Chubb had. Yeah, I know Nick Chubb scored a touchdown, but, he was wide open. He was wide open. And honestly, one of the other arguments that the guy made for Nick Chubb is he said, well, he would be the best running back in the room right away. I'm like, would he? Like, even I think Jaleel down the stretch had, done better than Nick Chubb would have done on this team right now. So, yes, I love Nick Chubb. I love that we were able to watch a great peak. He's one of the reasons that Cleveland was able to dig themselves out of the hole of being one of the worst franchises in the NFL, one of the worst run teams of the past, ever since the early 2000s. Like, they had just been absolutely lost as an organization. And credit to Nick Chubb for being a part of that turnaround. But his position and his play style just does not age well. Maybe he could be a reliable, blocker, third and short type guy. Maybe he could find that sort of Javonte Williams role that we did have for Javonte this year on another team, but Nick Chubb is washed. He's cooked. Number 2, another Nick, who we're going to go with, that I see a lot of people advocate for, and it's Nick Bolton of the Kansas City Chiefs. So I understand the argument here, too. I understand the argument of, pull a, premier player on a contending team, on a rival contending team, away from them. But to be completely honest, this guy is going to get an enormous market value contract, and I just don't think it should be us for a number of reasons. First of all, I very, very highly value the opinions of fans who actually watch every single game. And Chiefs fans on Reddit, on wherever else I've seen this whole season, have said that whoever pays Nick Bolton a lot of money and pays him a market contract in free agency is really, really going to regret it. And when you watch Nick Bolton play, honestly, from the Chiefs games I do see, that holds true because he is a phenomenal first, second down inside linebacker, maybe one of the best in the entire NFL. And I really like what he would offer in terms of, first, second down run support, blitzing. He's a violent downhill blitzer, and he's a great TFL guy too. And if you do want to get better in run support, which, we were pretty weak at when it came to playing against Buffalo and Baltimore this year, yes, then Nick Bolton is your guy. But, for a team like us that has complained for years about not being able to cover the middle of the field, not being able to cover tight ends, not being able to defend against, those pesky intermediate routes that somehow always seem to cook us on third and long in the middle of the field. For a fan base that has been crying in the desert for a legit solution at being able to make that not happen, Nick Bolton is not your guy. That's just what it boils down to. And if you were going to sign him to a 4-year, $60 million contract, that would really, I think that would not be that good because you can only sign a limited amount of free agents if you are going to go, all in at a certain point, which I imagine the Broncos will be doing with Nick Bolton. And, that's not to say that you need to be strapped to a certain threshold, like 5 or 6 second contract big free agent signing dudes or whatever. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that I feel like 15 mil a year or 14 a year on Nick Bolton, which is what I think around Roquan is getting paid right now, and same with Fred Warner. Like, just a contract like that just does not make sense for this team. It just doesn't. And I would really like to see us go after Dre Greenlaw. I would really like to see us go after Zach Bond, because just talking about Dre Greenlaw, okay. So, talking about both these guys in the Super Bowl real quick. So, if you guys remember the 49ers Chiefs rematch Super Bowl last year, guess what? Greenlaw gets hurt. The Chiefs offense could not do anything. It looked very similar to this past Super Bowl where the Chiefs offense couldn't do anything. But guess what? Dre Greenlaw tears his Achilles running onto the field. And then the Chiefs just started targeting his replacement, Oren Burks, in that game. And Oren Burks got absolutely shredded the entire game. Now, and honestly, had Greenlaw not gotten hurt, the 49ers definitely win that game. Now, Zach Bond, talking about him, he did not get hurt. He did not tear his Achilles running onto the field. And guess what? The Chiefs could not move the football the entire game except for when they were stat padding in the fourth quarter. So, yeah, that is the justification of why we should not go after Nick Bolton. I know that he's going to come up. I know that a lot of people really, really like him. I know that, because we know him as one of these stars in the Kansas City defense, and he is a green dot dude who calls Spagnuolo's complex defense. I get the arguments behind signing him. I don't think he's the right fit for the Denver Broncos either. Number 3, Drew Dalman. So, Broncos fans I've seen want to upgrade the center spot, or upgrade the center spot, as I put it there. But to be completely honest, a lot of them, I think, who want to upgrade the center spot, I see the fan base go back and forth about it, do not understand what Wattenberg had offered to our team this year. So listen, also, if we were to go after a guy like this, you realize that 5 out of our 5 offensive linemen would be on second contracts. And to be completely honest, I just think that that is one too many. Now, you could say whatever you want about Wattenberg playing next to Powers, playing next to Miners, and that's completely valid, but he had the lowest pressure rate in the league at the center position. And if you're going to, use that argument against him, why didn't Cushenberry do the same thing in 2023? Cush had a great year in 2023, and maybe that's why he had a great year. But guess what? Powers isn't going anywhere next year. Neither is Miners. So everyone hates Weinberg because, a lot of people are blaming him for the poor run blocking. But listen, a better offensive ecosystem, being able to hit the intermediate passes, being able to have a legit running back who can hit the hole, having a tight end who can actually help you in the passing game, all that is going to make the run game better. And I've been saying that the run game being anemic is not the fault of one person. It is partially due to the scheming, predictability, no intermediate weapon, no, respectable tight end, and all that, no respectable running back either. And all that remains true. So whenever people talk about Drew Dalman, I think a lot of it is because Atlanta has had really, really good run blocking lines the past few years. And I understand the justification of going after a guy like this. Once again, I understand arguments for all these players, but Wattenberg had the best pressure percentage in the league at center and the second best PFF blocking efficiency. So that includes like pressures, like hurries. That accounts to how good he was, at preventing stuff like that. Once again, not a bad player. Not a bad player at all. I actually think from the little I've seen of him, he is a good player. He is a smart player, and he's going to be a really good pickup for whoever does get him. But this is, once again, just an unnecessary team-building move at this point. Number 4, Stefon Diggs. Listen, of all the veteran free agent wide receivers, besides another guy who we're going to talk about next, Stefon Diggs, he showed signs of life in Houston this past year. After 2023, he ended the season very poorly. Part of that was due to the fact that Buffalo had switched offensive coordinators and, they stopped looking Diggs' way, and he was running bad routes. He wasn't giving effort. He was dropping balls. So he had a very, very poor end to 2023. But you never know what a change of scenery could do for a dude, especially even though I thought he was on the decline. But a 31-year-old coming off of an ACL tear just ain't it. We don't really do the diva wide receiver thing here either. And a 31-year-old Stefon Diggs is not going to be the one to change that. If we could get prime Diggs, fantastic. I'd be all for it, even if he is a diva or whatever. But adding a guy like Diggs, you don't know what that could do to the locker room. Like, for a team that is so tight-knit, for a team that, I've seen them personally come into a restaurant I've worked at. They all have dinners together, whatever. Patrick Surtain said they all went to, the defense always used to, have weekly dinners with one another. Same with all the position groups. And you know what? That's perfectly great. And this team does seem very tight-knit, and we have changed the culture there. But you never know how adding a guy like Diggs could poison, what we have in the locker room. You never know how adding a guy like that could taint what we have built, a strong camaraderie and a strong brotherhood in the Broncos locker room as well. And with wide receivers, you want dudes that are mainly taking over, not guys that are on the decline if they are going to be a diva. So, yeah, once again, he'll get a shot in another team. Like, he will get another chance because, I think another team is going to sign him as like oh, this guy might have something left sort of dude. But it's very unlikely that anyone is going to rely on him to be a true difference maker at this point. And once again, this is just another one where I think we should let another AFC rival jump on this landmine, jump on this grenade. Not currently what we need for the Denver Broncos right now. Number 5, there's been a lot of talk the past 2 days about a certain player, and you know what's coming. You know what's coming either. Deebo Samuel. So I just want to say that he is not technically a free agent, but he is one of the dudes available in this cycle, especially because he might get released by the 49ers, even though they would have to eat $15 million in dead cap. I think they're at the point where if the dude wants to move on, they're just going to move on. And with Deebo Samuel, there's just nothing about this move that would make sense for me. Mims is doing the same role as Deebo Samuel, where, all right, we have a guy who's not really a great route runner, but, you give him the ball in space, you give him the opportunity to make dudes miss, you create a return on offense, as Sean Payton put it. This is the result. The back half of the year is the result we saw from Marvin Mims. And I think that of the teams that are, favored to sign Deebo Samuel, or at least within the top 5 or 6, I think Deebo Samuel makes the least sense for our team because we need a dude who can run routes over the middle. We need a respectable body at, either receiver, tight end, or whatever to give Bo Nix another consistent weapon. And this seems to be a discussion because Robert Griffin III tweeted that we'd be a good pairing. But like I said, I think that it makes the least sense for us rather than the other teams, that are in contention for him, like Washington, like Pittsburgh, and all that. So listen, he had an awesome peak. He had an awesome peak, and the 49ers, they do not become the 49ers without Deebo Samuel. Like, it feels like we're seeing the end of what was an incredible peak because, once again, this is another guy that his play style, I feel like, will not age well. He was a very, very violent yak player, and he was a very, very fast player as well. So listen, once again, I just don't really know if that makes sense for the Broncos to add at this current juncture. The 49ers, he also was one of the dudes who gave them that attitude, that swagger that they always carry because the 49ers, they play everyone tough. Like, even though it didn't work out for them this past year, they've always, always played people tough ever since Deebo has come into the NFL. They don't care who you are. Even in their down years, they always seemed to, go into Green Bay and make the NFC Championship with Jimmy Garoppolo as the quarterback. And when I think about that run in particular, I always think about Deebo Samuel being the dude holding the boombox and just absolutely yelling the words to Kodak Black. Uh, and yeah, so once again, for a joker, like a lot of people are saying that Sean Payton needs a joker, and Sean Payton clarified it as a dude who can attack between the hashes, like doesn't have to be exclusively one position. But, for a guy who we want in that role, you want a guy who can take over. You want a guy who you can get on a cheap deal for the next 4 to 5 years, and you can pair him with Bo Nix, and they can build a connection there. You don't want a short-term guy. You don't want a short-term guy, and that's exactly what Deebo Samuel would need. And just an added bonus, like Deebo Samuel has made 49ers fans really mad this year because, he tweeted out after the 49ers had a blowout win, he tweeted out that he wasn't getting the ball enough. He tweeted out, whatever. And Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy had to explain that. So then they give Deebo Samuel an opportunity to rectify that, and they gave him a slant. I forget against who, but it was a really pivotal moment in the game, and he ended up dropping the ball, and he probably would have scored a touchdown had he caught it. So yeah, Deebo Samuel, he's just not what we need either. Like, once again, for the role that he would provide to this offense just doesn't make sense. Now, granted, I understand one of the counter arguments is you want Bo Nix to have as many counter weapons as you want him to have as many viable weapons as possible, and I get that too. But yeah, no, I can just do without him. All right, so that does it for me. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're not already, and I'll see you guys next time. Mile High Salute.